So lovely to see you again and talk to you. Here it finally comes, the second question and answer with video. And yeah, we've had quite a few amazing, deep and profound questions from a few people. And yeah, I'm excited to answer them right now for you. So we had a question from Michelle last week, and the question was how to stay positive in times of turmoil. And that's a great question, and I think it's a very relevant question at the moment for all of us, because yeah, at a global level and in our individual lives, there's so much change, uncertainty, and turmoil happening at the moment. You know, for each of us, that means something different. You know, it's a different extent, and at a different level. So I would, to start with, suggest to reframe that question and go, how can we stay centered in times of turmoil? So centered and grounded, basically. Because for me, that's the gateway or the entrance portal towards that state of feeling positive or hopeful or excited or motivated. So how can we stay centered and grounded in times of change, in times of uncertainty? Well, we start with, first of all, acknowledging it's a tough time, it's a challenging time. I feel I don't have all the answers. I feel maybe to some extent a bit helpless or even scared. And yeah, to go back to this moment of honesty and true acknowledgement. Wow, this is challenging me. And then have a good look, you know, what am I focusing on? What am I exposing myself to? So for example, I went through this phase in the, beginning, halfway through the year, for exposing myself to quite a bit of news and information and research, and around that whole situation that is unfolding at the moment globally. So, and I really had to make a conscious decision to stop doing that, because it was just too much, and it tempted me to be focused on content and information that would keep throwing me off my center. And making these decisions and choices. Okay, what am I exposing myself to on a daily basis, and how is that affecting me? How is that affecting my mind? What is that feeding into? Is this feeding my fear, or is it actually feeding hopefulness, or feeling centered and grounded, or feeling neutral or fairly detached at the least? So the question really is, what helps me to stay positive in times of turmoil is what actually truly helps me to stay centered, to feel nurtured, to feel grounded, really. And that can be very simple and small self-care steps, by making choices of I'm not going to expose myself to certain people. I'm not going to expose myself to certain, content, news. Um, I'm going to remove myself as much as I can from any types of information that are triggering uncertainty, fear, panic, worry around whatever is going on in life, in my life. So, yeah, well, the journey here, the journey of exploration, really is what keeps me centered and grounded, and from there, from this state of, I feel I may not be, I may not like whatever is happening in my life or around me, whatever the challenge is at the moment. However, I have the tools that can help me to keep going and to stay in my center. Yeah. So it's really a journey of exploring what nurtures me, what nourishes me, um, what helps me to, detach from spiraling and focusing on certain thoughts. Because this is, in the end of the day, what it is all about, depending on what I'm exposing myself to. This will trigger certain thoughts and beliefs and fears within me. So it's a training and practice of mindfulness and, of discernment as well, becoming really mindful, aware, and discerning what am I exposing myself to externally around me, but also internally, my thoughts, my beliefs, what am I feeding? What am I amplifying within me that keeps me throwing off center? And then from a centered and, well, at least more neutral state of being, I can then, from there, have a much clearer outlook on what are my possibilities here, what are my options here, what are my choices. So when I'm when I feel very ungrounded and can't see, the forest for the trees or the trees for the forest, whatever that saying is, then it's hard for me to actually make discerning and clear choices on what my next steps are in a time of challenge, in a time of change, in times of uncertainty. Yeah, so whatever the turmoil is that you're going through, the really leading question is, what is beneficial for me? What grounds me? What centers me? What keeps me at ease, or what helps me to be at ease a bit more? Yeah, what tiny little steps can help me to do so? And then we had a question also from Michelle, and that's a beautiful question. She asked, how do we overcome our self-hate in order to self-care? And that's a great question, because it taps into a huge hurdle towards self-care. Why we're not self-caring, why we're not being more compassionate and loving to ourselves. So, and self-hate is a strong feeling. Basically, it's a very difficult feeling. It's basically a form of self-sabotaging as well, in many ways. Self-hate is a form of punishment, and that's because why do we punish ourselves? We in some way, shape, or form may be holding on to guilt, and we may not even be aware that we carry guilt within us. We may not even be aware that there's something in us that we feel or carry guilt about. So the first step really is to explore that self-hate and what is that actually all about. Because so there's a resistance, that's a blockage that will always keep us from engaging with us in a loving way, and treating us in a gentle, soft, and need-orientated way. So what's that self-hate all about? Is this a punishment? Am I carrying guilt? Is there something that I can't let go of, that I believe I did wrong? What is this really all about? Why do I feel I have to punish myself in that way? And that's a bit of an exploration there, and digging a bit deeper and excavating these layers of what is that self-hate all about? How, and oftentimes it's a learned behavior. Yeah, it's something that we picked up, mainly from our parents, that, kind of like taps into that belief, I'm actually not worthy of providing myself with the care that I need. So, and in order to kind of like reason and justify this, we have to, we have to develop a rational type, logical way of making sense of that. Yeah. So hating ourselves, punishing ourselves, harming ourselves in whatever way, shape, or form. All these things that we do when we sabotage our own journey in ourselves. Yeah. Anytime when we are not doing what we actually meant to do or want to do, that's that hurdle and resistance. So, yeah, my invitation is to explore this self-hate a bit more, what that self-hate is all about, and what feelings are connected, and perhaps also what memories are connected with that self-hate, because this resistance towards self-care needs to be cleared and acknowledged and cleared in order to, free the way towards authentic and true self-care, basically. So I hope this gives you, Michelle, a few hints and cues where to look at, and to finding out more about what's that self-hate all about. Okay. And then we have a question: how to let go and get over the past? And that's a beautiful question too, and a relevant question, because it kind of like is linked and indirectly linked with the question I just answered. Hanging on to the past, again, is a form of self-punishment. And it's basically a form of imprisoning ourselves, because we're spiraling, we're being focused, we're just not letting go of whatever happened in the past for whatever reason. And that is now the interesting part. What is the reason of that? What is it that we feel we need to replicate in our minds over and over again? Is it resentment? Is it anger that we haven't digested yet? Is it rejection? Is it abandonment? Is it betrayal? So that's a journey of exploring the feeling, what is it that we what is that past at an emotional level? Yeah, what's the feeling that we actually struggle to let go of? And that's the journey towards letting go. So when we're holding on to a lot of resentment, either towards ourselves or to someone else, or a mix of both, which oftentimes is the case, it's kind of like a complex dynamic of, you know, projecting on the resentment, for example, to another person, or anger, when in actual fact we're also resenting a part of ourselves, or we're being angry towards ourselves for not having set boundaries, for example, in a safe and firm or assertive way. Yeah, so how to let go of the past really is, what is the feeling, or what are the feelings that I find difficult to feel? Yeah, and a way to explore that is what memories, what situations keep coming up, and what feelings are being triggered. So what are the feelings that I really, really find difficult to feel and avoid? And spiraling or overthinking and constantly replicating or relaying, you know, details of the past at a cognitive level, meaning in our minds, again, is a way to avoid feeling the feelings. And in order to clear those feelings, in order to let go, you know, to literally discharge those feelings, or more so discharge the intensity of those feelings, we need to acknowledge what these feelings are, and we need to some extent, in our own pace, and, you know, in our own time, be willing to feel those feelings. And that's what discharges the emotional intensity, and, you know, helps us to let go of whatever happened. Because, you know, many of you may have heard that already, the brain actually can't distinguish between an actual event that is happening right in this moment and the memory that, you know, we were able to revive by focusing on it. So the emotional response to either the actual event that may happen right in front of our eyes, or memory, might be very much the same. Yeah. So by amplifying and going over the past over and over again, in our minds, yeah, we keep charting the emotional intensity of that memory of the past without actually moving through that feeling, or that process of acknowledgement, and then feeling that feeling, and then discharging the intensity. So that doesn't mean we will never ever feel angry again, or resentful, or rejected, or abandoned. It means that we, by acknowledging the feeling and being able to feel it, learn that we do have the tools and the emotional capacity to actually feel those feelings. We no longer only need to rely on avoiding these feelings in whatever way we do that. And there are many ways, many addictive ways how we can avoid feeling those feelings, but we do have other tools. We build up this inner trust, that trust towards ourselves, that we hold the emotional capacity, and that we can build up this capacity. So feeling difficult feelings becomes less threatening, or less unsafe. Yeah, it's a journey of growing that sense of safety. I'm safe with my feelings. Feeling my feelings is safe. And that's the journey of making peace with those feelings, that have accumulated over the course of time from the past. Yeah, so if you're sitting there and you are you are dealing with some difficulty or challenge from the past that you find difficult to let go of, ask yourself, what's the feeling? What's the dominating feeling, or what are the feelings that that come up when I connect with that memory or certain situations from the past? What is it that I feel so hard, that I find so hard to feel? Yeah. All right. So we have time for one more question. And there's a question from Tai. And Tai asked, how do you heal from trauma when your circumstances don't allow you to leave a predominant situation that triggers you? So that's a great question, and an important question, and a big question as well. So I don't know what the situation is. Trauma is a very broad word, and obviously there are all sorts of different kinds and types of trauma. And to start with, if you are in a situation that is traumatic and triggering and even maybe life-threatening, that highly unsafe, that in any case is a reason to think really seriously about leaving the situation. So not always that is possible, and that is what Ty's question is all about. What happens when we keep being triggered in a traumatic or triggering situation, but we can't actually leave. So that could be family related, challenging constellations, where you may be the caregiver of a family member, something like that keeps triggering you. So in a situation like that, the first question or the first point of focus is, okay, what are my internal resources here, and what are my external resources here? So it's all about resourcing ourselves. So external resources obviously is everything that lies outside of me, but gives me an inspiration or an input or some sort of external support. Yeah. So a very typical example is working with a counselor or a psychologist or a coach, and receiving support there in order to also build up our inner resourcing, our internal resources. But also, do I have, a stable network of friends where I have the opportunity to find comfort, to discharge, to recharge, basically, and to literally get a change of scenery. So in other words, do I have enough opportunities, or can I create more opportunities to step out of this triggering situation and energy in order to recharge? And what recharging really means is finding a more neutral state of being again, not being in that heightened, all the time agitated and triggered and overwhelmed and stressed and disempowered. Do I have, little islands in my daily routine where I can kind of like slow down, calm down and breathe again? Yeah. So as much as you can do outside of that triggering situation. As much as you can step out of this, the better. And then of course, and this is, then of course the internal resourcing is an important part to that. And using your external resources will help you build up those internal resources. So it's about the inner work and literally learning how to become more thick-skinned, but more in an energetic kind of way. So it's really about building up. I like to work with this visualization or metaphor of a cocoon, yeah, like an energetic protective layer that we place around us, around our bodies, in order to stay safe and to contain within us whatever needs to be contained and belongs to us, and to be more able to actually detach or distance from whatever is triggering us. And then the inner work starts, and that's those uncomfortable questions. So why is that? Why are certain things triggering me? So again, there's an important distinction to make here, and that's, what is the trauma? Is it, physical abuse, sexual abuse? Is it life-threatening? So, and of course, these are things where absolutely the advice is, remove yourself from that situation and get help and support. So, there's a distinction between what trauma is it, or is it more a trauma of the emotional kind, where feelings like, again, difficult feelings like shame and guilt and self-dislike or abandonment or betrayal or rejection, feeling inadequate or inferior, so what is the trauma, and again, what emotions are being triggered, what is triggered, and what's the story around that emotion, that feeling that keeps being triggered. So it's definitely a challenging situation when you're still in that energy of the triggering event, or that index trigger, and if it keeps being re-triggered or even re-traumatized, it's challenging, but with a mix of creating a lot of space for external resources as much as you can, stepping out of that energy of this context, and building up your internal emotional resources will be pivotal. And with the set or tool kit of different things that you can build up, it will also be more easeful to take decisions for yourself, clear decisions for yourself that tap into, again, those topics of self-care and boundaries and safety, basically. Because this is also, when we talk trauma, it's always also a discussion about safety and boundaries and needs. So I hope this was helpful. This was a complex topic and a complex question. And of course, I don't know what exactly the situation is, but I hope this guitar gives you a few hints again and ideas where to look, what to look at, and how to move forward on this journey. All right. So we had a few more questions, but as always, there could always be more time. I will be. I'll definitely keep all the questions that you ask, and over the course of the weeks, I will try as best as I can to answer all your questions. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to receiving your questions going forward from here, receiving your inspiration, your input, your feedback, and thank you so much for supporting me, for co-creating this space, the Mind Your Karma community, and also for those of you who I've met at the Mind Your Karma Healing Center. A big hello and thank you. Yeah, see you next time.